So one of the people I've treated recently, actually, who I met 10 years ago in Ireland, and was travelling, a Canadian woman who was travelling in Ireland 10 years ago, and she got really sick while she was on holidays, and she came to see the doctor who was working downstairs for me, and he wasn't in, and she came up to me for treatment, and she just had phenomenal recovery. Now, she was promoting a book here in Vancouver called Waking Up the West Coast, and it turned out that she recognised me in the book, and that she knew me from 10 years ago in Ireland. So then she came and she had another session with me here in Vancouver, and she had some scarring from an operation that she had, and after just one session the scarring disappeared. And so she had her second miraculous result with me 10 years apart. So that was really nice, and she wanted then to help promote me in Canada and to market me. So that was really nice to meet someone who had known me from Ireland and wanted to participate in that over here. There's been so many fantastic results with bioenergy that they never cease to impress me. My main results would be very much with pain. I have fantastic results with treating people with back pain, migraine, arthritic pain. I had one guy who had his hand was closed from arthritis for over 10 years, and as I was working on him I found a block in his solar plexus and his stomach point. I was clearing the energy from that point sometimes I do the treatment for 4 days, 4 consecutive days, and on day 3 I was clearing the energy from his stomach, and I got what I would say is like an electric shock from his stomach, and his hand flung open, and he just had full movement again in his hand after 10 years of not being able to open his hand. And I got this electric shock that threw me across the floor, and his hand opened, and it was sort of like I was only, one of the reasons this really sticks with me is because it was the first week I was practicing. It was near 14 years ago now, and it's one of those ones that this is one of the first people I treated, and this is the kind of result that I was getting from very early on. So it was really nice because he was the father of a friend of mine. So my friend, of course, who was my Kung Fu instructor at the time, he was so impressed with it that he sent a lot of people to me. So that was a great start to my practice in Ireland. And then when, I wanted to find out, well, why did this man have arthritis for 10 years in his hand, and how come he had operations and everything, how come he still had it after all these years? And I asked him, had anything happened 10 years ago when he got the arthritis, and there was nothing that he could think of at the time. And then I said, well, did anything happen around 11 years ago? And he said, well, he lost his job, he was made redundant. And when he said that, his whole energy dropped down, and I realised that was it. I said to him, how did that make you feel? And he actually used the words, he said, I felt crippled at the time. And boom, I realised that at that moment it was that idea, that thought that he had, that he was no longer needed. And it took a year for that thought to manifest through the energy field into his physical body. And so a year later he had lost that movement in his hand because he had felt that he was no longer needed because he was made redundant from the job. So after I worked with him to open up his energy system and to where he had stored that energy was in here, in the solar plexus, in the stomach, and that's where we store a lot of our emotional energy. So there's just actually someone I treated not too long ago was a guy who came and he had problems with his knee, and as I checked out his knees, I said to him, you have a problem with your right knee. And he informed me that I was wrong, that the problem was with his left knee. And I said, well, how many operations did you have on your left knee? And he said, 4. And I said, did they work? And he said, no. And I said, that's because the problem is with the wrong knee. So his energy was blocked in his right knee. And when I cleared his right knee, his left knee got better. and he'd had these problems with his left knee for like over 7 years, and he had 4 operations on his left knee, and they were treating the wrong knee. So sometimes how energy shows up in the body is that it doesn't always show up where the problem is. When pain shows up in the body, pain is an indication that there's something wrong. It's like an aisle light coming on in the car, but you don't go and change the bulb. You have to follow the light back to find out where the problem is. And that's what happens with the energy. When someone's energy is blocked, you have to find out, what is this blockage causing? Where is this coming from? And so what my work very much is, first of all, to find out where their energy is stuck, where is it blocked, and to get it flowing again back in that area. So you relieve that physical attachment to the energy system. Then there's also 2 other areas that you have to release, which is the emotional attachment and the mental attachment. And the emotional attachment is when someone has a pain or problem for 10 years, that's a long time. And so you have to help them release that emotional energy that's attached to the physical problem. Then there's also the mental energy, which is the thoughts and the feelings that they've had, that, you know, they keep thinking about their problem, they've had it for so long, they can't see it in their mind leaving them. And so we work on the brow, excuse me, we work on what we call the brow chakra, and by doing that it opens up the brow and helps people relieve those mental thoughts that create the physical ailment. So when one is working with energy, one needs to work with the physical problem, the emotional attachment to the physical problem, and then the mental attachment to the physical problem. And unless you release all these 3 layers, in most cases the problems will come back again. So that's very much what bioenergy does. It works on the physical, the emotional, and the mental.